on the Eumenides by Aeschylus. So, well, let's get started. So we had a couple questions about this book. First, what about the Furies? The Furies seem to lead this story mostly. It's mostly about them, and they start the whole first trial and everything. So my first question is, why did the Furies initially go after Orestes? They went after him, but they didn't go after Agamemnon, who had exactly the same crime as Orestes, which is just very confusing to me. What did you guys think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of blood to go around before this incident. It's very interesting that this is what they chose to act upon. Because the Furies this time acted as the Greek chorus. Because earlier it was like the older men, and this time they chose a rather different chorus to show. And you have a big part to do with the play. No, but I was seeing a lot of themes of like motherhood within there. That seemed to be one of the
I'm just looking at the line 321 on 245. Right at the beginning, the trial's about to start, and they open it with this imagery of being born from the mother of night, blinded, dead, they're avenging. It's interesting that the imagery of their birth from the mother goddess is the mother of night, just because the trial has a lot of images of the mother.
Yeah, they seem very persistent about the mother, and I think that's originally why they go after Orestes, because Agamemnon didn't kill his mother, he killed his daughter, which is very different than killing someone who was born of you or someone who bore you. I think is the big difference in that right there.
And I think they're very persistent in killing Orestes, because even just when we start off on page 245, that whole beginning from like 310 to 320, lines 310 to 320, they're saying like, but show us the guilty, one like this who hides his reeking hands, and up from the outraged dead we rise, witness bound to avenge their blood, we rise in flames against him to the end. So like, it seems as if no matter what obstacles get in their way, they are going to avenge, and he will get his share in what he did. And I think that's what they want him, like it's like payback.
Do you think they want him dead, or do you think they're just trying to drive him crazy? Because I never saw like a moment where they literally said, "I want you dead," which I could have missed. But it just seems like they're kind of just trying to drive him crazy, maybe even to kill himself.
Yeah, I think it's just a form of punishment. That's their job. They're supposed to
That's all
punish.
they know. And
Yeah.
before this point, it's all they've ever done. They've never been questioned about it.
Also, I think that they might just be trying to get their foot in at the action that's happening in the city. They want to show that there's still a present force. And to the people, this trial is like the first of its kind. It's going to be a new thing that they're all experiencing together, and they want to be there, like showing themselves as a dominant force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the first trial recorded in this line of story. Which brings up the question, why? What about this crime
Yeah,
started this, made it important enough?
And it's like, what is the difference between killing your mother and then killing your daughter? Like it's like both are females who were killed.
Killing your
Both,
husband.
and it's just like, yeah, exactly. Like what makes killing the mother so different than any other type of killing that you could do?
Yeah,
And why
actually,
did it
I think
punish
that's
you?
an interesting point, because it seems like there's a disparity between what they're even prosecuting and what Apollo, as like the defense attorney, is defending. He's saying he didn't even kill his blood because he doesn't even believe the mother to be like a part of the birth of it all. So there's like a disparity between what they even count the mother as. Is it a blood relation, or is it? Because if it's blood on blood killing, then that's a very serious crime in their times.
That's like nature versus nurture. Like she gave him away almost immediately after he was born. So does that still make him his mother? Like even if someone was adopted, does that make that person your mother, or is it your birth mother? It's just like very kind of a gray area all across the board, I think.
Which definitely causes conflict
Yeah.
in how Orestes should be punished. Because if it, how does he look at her?
Yeah.
And then how is she perceived? And it's all, I think it's very subjective.
Yes.
And from everybody's point of view, there's no objective point of view looking at this. That's why the punishment is so I feel like ambiguous.
Yeah, I think I guess we have to answer why it provoked the trial is because it was such a gray area and it was so unclear that we really needed this like separate group of people to decide what was going on and what should be done about it.
It seems like it's the God's first time to realize this gray area, and it's an important thing not to just act, because they realize there's all these factors.
Yeah, Athena really seems to be the driving force of this trial, and she even said that she was not born of a mother, she was born fully of a father. So I think her being kind of removed from the situation made her a better judge in the end.
I agree with that.
Because it ended with a tie, didn't it? And she was the one.
And
She was the one
she
to-
broke it, yeah.
She made the Furies angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, even Apollo on 259, some powerful imagery of the difference he counts between the murder of Agamemnon and this murder is almost kind of just based on their sex. I mean, it's like not the same for a noble man to die covered with praise, his scepter the gift of God, murdered at that by a woman's hand, no arrows whipping in from a distance as the Amazon would fight. But as you will hear, Athena and your people poised to cast their lots and judge the case. Then he goes on later to say that the blood relation between a mother is not the same as the father and the son.
yeah, that's interesting.
Interesting point. I wonder also at the end when the Furies got mad up with Athena, like if they felt a lack of almost power. Because I think in the beginning of the passage we read, I felt that they thought they had all the power
Yes.
over the situation and that almost they were going to be the deciders of any type of act of fate that would happen. And then at the end, it wasn't up to them.
It was just
And I think that-
agreed to the trial to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, now to declare our right to steer the lives of men. That's what they say. So they're just like declaring themselves, we have the power and so the right to direct the lives of mortals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't believe that they are even connected to the gods at the bottom of 246. They say, striving to wrench our mandate from the gods, we make ourselves exempt from their control. So I think they just think of themselves as a whole separate entity from
Yeah,
the
I think
gods.
they're
They're
just,
also older.
they feel
Yeah.
entitled, I think, to this power that they've had for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like they just think that they're going to lose their power through this whole thing. Mr. Frieda said, the crimes of men, if they're like losing their power, we lose a lethal tide to sweep the world. So I think that they feel that if this punishment goes free, then like they're not going to even have any power anymore, and they're not going to be able to punish anyone because how will that be just?
Yeah, and it's also interesting, like after they get angry, they threaten to destroy the city, and Athena like asks them to stay underneath the city, which is, I wonder why.
Yeah, that's interesting that she did.
Well, I think it's interesting, Ms. Gosney, is that on the few lines down from where you just read, we lose a lethal tide to sweep the world, they spring in the question of justice, hear me, furies, thrones, and power.
Yeah.
They're calling on this figure of justice, but is anything that they're doing just? I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if their entirety of what they're doing is in this trial is based on his actions, but they're ignoring the actions of his mother.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's even the ground starting point for justice.
True, yeah, and I'm not sure even if Clytemnestra got any punishment because I know she had those nightmares at the beginning of the last play, which is like what provoked Orestes to meet Electra, his sister. So I don't know what that punishment was, or even if that had to do anything with the Furies, or if that had to do with her own guilt. But I believe that there is no grounds of justice, and they keep saying the house of justice will fall, but is it even built yet? I don't know.
The whole idea of justice throughout is kind of what they're trying to grasp at, but it seems to me it gets hard for them because they realize all these clauses, all these different viewpoints. And I think we're still trying to get a grasp on justice.
Yeah, I think-
to this day.
I think, like I said earlier, it's just a gray area.
Yeah, it's interesting that the outcome of the trial before Athena puts her input in is equal.
Yeah.
I I mean, obviously there's a division between what these people are believing, and something is dividing them, whether it's the belief that the Furies are promulgating that just because he killed someone that was of his blood, it's a more serious crime, but then they're arguing from the other side that it's not. So there's obviously, even in the jury, they don't even are on the same page.
Exactly, and today that would be considered a mistrial anyway, and they would have to leave and get a whole new jury and become a whole new verdict. So I know this is the first trial and they're still kind of trying to get their footing, but like how is that fair if because the judge today doesn't really make the decision, they let the jury make the decision and do the punishment. But in here the judge made the decision. So I don't know how that was just in itself either.
Yeah. I mean, it's the goddess of wisdom too, so any chance that for we're all the same. It's in the end you're gonna have this trial and then I'll decide the outcome.
Yeah, so why even bring in the people? Why even have the trial if she was going to decide the outcome anyway?
To make it the illusion that it was
Do you think?
just.
Do you think she was trying to make the illusion, or do you think she was actually trying to have like a fair decision and it just worked out that it wasn't and it just didn't work?
I think they were trying to make an effort. Because they never did before that.
They kind of made all the decisions themselves.
It was an attempt to be just, I think. I'm not sure what the ultimate end goal was, or if did the ends justify the means? I'm not sure if that is necessarily answered, but I think they were trying to make an attempt at being just so that this trial would at least come across to the rest of the crowd as if it was fair, and that there was a fair decision that was made, and that this is just. And although we've discussed how justice is kind of subjective,
Yeah.
so we don't even know, this is maybe an idea of what a just act could be, but is it really what justice is? I don't know if we know that answer, or if there is a right answer, because I think everybody's going to perceive it differently.
Yeah, and I think you could also ask, did Athena already know what she wanted the outcome to be? When we're talking about how the trial was just kind of to show fairness, did she already have, her decision in mind when she started the trial?
I think she did.
Are the Furies even just to be opening this case? Or are they just trying to promote their own will? On 266, this line that we talked about a lot says, I lose my poison over the soil when they're transcended by the younger gods who have ridden them down and ruined the ancient laws, then they feel like their poison over the soil is redacted. But that imagery, are they even, is this trial even for the right reason?
Yeah, even on the page before they say, "Oh night, dark mother, are you watching now?" It's like they kind of know that they're losing the trial, even when they start trash talking Apollo and they're kind of going back and forth at it. Actually, that's interesting. They bring back, "Oh night, dark mother, are you watching now?" Because if they believe that their mother is the night and they lose their poison over the soil, do they think they have control of the whole world? Just because they're older and more wise, or even though the younger gods seem to have more control over what's going on?
No one ever questioned them before. For each punishment that they saw, they'd do whatever. And I think that's one thing this trial did do, right, is kind of set a preface for what the future is. Oh, good, you're not just going to attack people.
There has to be some type of reason. Although, going back to with Athena, if she had this set in mind or not, I do think that just the gods in general, they are powerful, and they also thrive off of the ability to have power over everybody else. So I wouldn't put it past Athena to make the illusion hey, look, I'm being fair. I'm going to establish fairness. I'm going to establish a foundation. But ultimately, it's going to be my decision regardless. Whether you know it or not, it's going to be my decision. But here's the illusion that this was fair and that everything was done in a just way. And now we're setting the preface, we're setting the foundation for how future trials will go. And then she's essentially the creator of that, because she's the one who did it this way first. So now she's looked at as wow, Athena did this, and then whatever. So you know what I mean? Like it makes her look good, and then she can still have the power of like we don't know what her intentions were, but
I totally agree with that. And the Furies just seem like very hostile creatures in their own. So I think that maybe she even thought that this was the only way that Orestes was going to go free. Because if she just made the decision on the spot, then I think there would have been a war breaking out between the Furies and the gods, and that could have just destroyed everything. So I think the way she did it was clever, and even if it was an illusion, I think that it was a precedent for all the trials to come, and that it is a fair way to judge things. And I think that what she did was the right thing to do in this situation.
Yeah, and I think it does show that the new gods are now transcending the old gods.
Yeah.
There's a shift of power here in 766. Apollo, right before Athena states the verdict, he goes, honor, justice, an error in judgment can mean disaster. The cast of a single lot restores the house to greatness. I don't think it's just Orestes' house. The cast of a single lot restores the house to greatness. It might just be the entire pantheon of gods at the same time. It's asserting that they're superseding the other god, the Furies, which eventually we know are put under the city.
Well, it also broke like a killing spree, essentially. Agamemnon killed his daughter, his wife killed him, and her son killed her.
So that house, the family.
And by instead of just killing everyone, they ended it with a verdict that said, okay, he can move on now.
And that in hopes that the family might too become like a force or even like a presence again, because their family is destroyed and it's just Orestes now and the other siblings.
Do you think that it broke the cycle? Or do you think that someone is going to try and kill Orestes to avenge Clytemnestra, or even do you think it's going to keep going around and around? Do you think this was the moment where the cycle broke?
I feel like the trial was sufficient to scare off other people. Because now all of a sudden there's a threat if you murder someone that the whole gods could come down and
and there's like an actual process that goes through how you will be punished.
So it's not your connections anymore.
Exactly. So, well, again, we're not sure, but
Or it's not the indifference of the other people in the case of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon. Other people just didn't really seem to be actively trying to prosecute her or anything like that.
Yeah, nothing was really done. They kind of just accepted it and were like, oh, whoops,
Yeah,
missed that one. Like,
that
Yeah.
sucks.
yeah, and he's dead now. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. But yeah, so I think this, I still don't really know exactly what provoked Athena to come down. She didn't really seem to have anything to do with the trial. It was more Apollo. So I'm not sure if she was trying to protect him or.
She was a bit of a mediator. I mean, she stayed in between. I think she did listen to both sides.
I definitely agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And at least she said at the beginning and not waiting till the end that if the verdict is a tie, I'll cast my lot for him.
Yeah, that was right off the bat. She did say that.
Which is almost like what we have in our current legal system is innocent till proven guilty. So it's like in the case of like no conclusion, the conclusion is in his favor.
Yes. So this is kind of a little
Which I do think is just.
You do think it's
I
actually
think that part is just. Whether or not the justice goes for the whole trial, but in her doing that, I think it was just maybe it had ulterior motives. But.
Yeah. I was actually just going to ask if you guys think that Orestes' trial was just or not, if him being let go was the right thing.
I think if we're looking at it as readers and not, because in the actual, like, we were there, I think that, like how we mentioned earlier, justice is very subjective. So it's kind of like what I might think is just is different than what Miss Abood might think is just. So it's a broad question, but in that time period, with considering how every other type of punishment has gone down, I think that was the most just thing that they've done. Like, especially, I give credit to Athena because she kind of, like how we just said, like, that was a preface, that everything that was done and then the ultimate decision afterwards, that was all through a series of steps. And it wasn't just, oh, this, or this is the answer, and this is the answer. Like, there was you could clearly see
Yes.
the beginning to the end.
Yeah, like at least there was an attempt to be just.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sort of called juster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Also, I think that Apollo coming in was like a real push to get Orestes acquitted because Apollo was the one who kind of almost forced Orestes to kill her because he did have a moment of reservation. It was like, should I really kill my mother? And Apollo was like, yeah, you better do it, or like you're gonna have a consequence for that. So I think that that was like a big moment in this trial where it kind of showed that Orestes was innocent because he was provoked by an outside party and a god nonetheless. You can't really say no to a god.
Yeah, and maybe it shows something more about the relationship that's different in this book than the other books we saw about the relationship between God and man. Because here, Apollo is informing him, but not so much, it's not just his will is happening whether or not human people partake, but also they're not so quick as to just like count off Orestes. That's just a human life. Like
Exactly, yeah.
it's like there's a ordeal going down, and this is causing problems between Athena and the Furies and cosmological parties. They're bigger than just the humans, but they're doing it all just to keep his life.
Yeah, that's very
Which is something we
interesting.
never see it
Yeah,
before.
yeah, I noticed that
It's
too.
like disposable normally.
Yeah, it seems like the first time a god or multiple gods are actually trying to defend a human or to save his life, and I don't know if they have bigger plans for him or if they're just using him as a pawn for their own benefits, which has usually been the case for gods thus far. So, but yeah, it's very interesting that this is the first time that they're actually trying to defend a human and see that he keeps his life, which has not really happened up until now.
Yeah, the gods always have their hands in everyone's business. But yeah, I think this trial is the best foot forward to for them to ask other people.
And then it gives everybody a chance to feel like they're a part of like a community, and it's not just like being ruled or being told what to do, like having a voice, which is very important. I think as just like humans on this earth is to feel like you can contribute in some way, and I think that's what at least with this trial, they're given that opportunity to feel like they can contribute.
Yeah, definitely. And even after the outcome of the trial, and the Furies do end up losing, they like threaten to destroy the city, and they threaten to go off on all the people and to burn down the city as they know it. But Athena, she offers them a different position, and she offers them a place under the city, which I thought was very interesting. And what did you guys think about that?
I think she's still trying to, well, at least she says in 899 that what she's giving, look like a provision, look, it's all yours, a royal share of our land, the gods, justly entitled, glorified forever. So for her, she believes that it's justly fit that they'll remain in this designated earthly spot, even though the rest of the gods have dominion over everything else. She still thinks that this is where their intended place should be.
I also think it's a way of her still being like the mediator, like peacekeeper, like trying to just like prevent any type of like uproar from occurring. So she just like gives everything has a place and should be in its place, and that's what like she's just trying to like convey to them.
Yeah, rather than like casting them out in general, she kind of gives them a purpose in their own special place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting how they turn from a fury into something good,
Yeah.
into a humanity.
Yeah, it's interesting. 2 pages before they have this conversion, they have this line that they repeat, and it's Night, dear mother night, all's lost, our ancient powers torn away by their cunning, ruthless hands. The gods so hard to wrestle down, obliterate us all. And then again, night, dear mother night, all's lost, our ancient powers torn away by their cunning, ruthless hands. The gods so hard to wrestle down, obliterate us all. So this obliteration that they are speaking of, and in fury, they're speaking in fury, goes away and he says, your magic is working, I can feel the hate, the fury slip away.
Yeah. So was it their choice, do you think? Did they agree to this, or was it an outside force that was taking away their fury. It just like is very confusing.
There's like a peace being imposed on them that they don't want because their fury is being, but a thing that says only peace blessings rising up from the earth and heaving sea and down the vaulting sky. Like only these things are going to emerge from this, not any of the fury or hatred that you're speaking.
Yeah, it's almost like throwing water on the witch when she like melts. I feel like that's kind of the same thing that's happening here, which is interesting. But why do you think they are put under the city? Like, what is the symbolism in that? Because I thought that's kind of like, putting the old gods under the city and letting the new gods rise and have their own decisions and have their own laws. And even the trial that symbolizes a whole new era of gods.
They still represent like what's holding up the city and all the things that used to be the foundations. And they remain relevant in that way, but still out of sight, out of mind, but always there.
Yeah. And it goes back to what they keep calling out to the mother and the darkness. And this cavernous place that they'll live under the city, or which will be peaceful. But she says nothing of light penetrating. Even though Apollo, the god of light, before was clearly showing imagery of light there, they'll have peace, but inevitably they'll still be with their mother night that they so desire to be with.
Yeah, they really can't let go of that, it seems like. And yeah, I think that's what started this whole debacle to begin with, is Oh Mother Night. Their mother is the night, and they're mad at Orestes for killing his mother, even though Agamemnon did the exact same type of crime. So I think that is really like the root of this whole problem, is the Furies and their direct connection to their mother night.
Yeah. Maybe they're just mad that the society doesn't uphold the motherly relationship in the same degree. The maternity of the mother is kind of downcast by the role of the father.
Yeah, definitely. Because even at the beginning, even to create this whole city, to create Mount Olympus, Zeus had to kill his father Cronus. So even like from the very beginning, there has been familial like boundaries between people. So if the cycle has been going since then, maybe this is what is going to stop it. This trial, I think, is what is going to be the thing that stops it.
Because I think it also makes people more aware and also more afraid to go against things, because this is like, who wants to be put on trial and after all this,
Yeah.
who wants, like, nobody is willingly going to put themselves in that situation. So I think that kind of will be a preventer for future, any kind of like future problems they might have.
Yeah, I was interested to see if he was proclaimed guilty, what would his punishment have been? Would it have been death? Would it have been sitting in a cell for the rest of his life? I just would have found it interesting to see what they would have done with him if he was found guilty.
I don't know if they'd hand him to the Furies, which they wanted the whole time, but imagine back then it wouldn't have been just prison, just because the harshness it had been before them, but if it had been death, it would have been something that had been agreed on, not just taken into someone's own hands.
Yeah. I think that's like a good place to end, because we're running out of time.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you for joining us, and tune in next time.